The wild winds weep, and the night is a cold. Come hither, sleep, and my griefs enfold. But lo, the morning peeps over the eastern steeps, and the rustling birds of dawn the earth do scorn. Lo, to the vault of paved heaven with sorrow fraught my notes are driven. They strike the ear of night, make weep the eyes of day. They make mad the roaring winds, and with tempests play. Like a fiend in a cloud with howling woe, after night I do crowd, and with night will go. I turn my back to the east, from whence comforts have increased, for light doth seize my brain with frantic pain. Blake left formal schooling at the age of 10 and was enrolled in drawing lessons at Henry Parr's establishment in the Strand. He read widely on subjects of his own choosing and started exploring poetry. This exploration, coupled with his visions which he experienced throughout his life, helped him form his unique voice, whether describing harmony or horror.
Isn't it? And he was pretty good at creating horrific imagery with his words, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then you've got the four Zoas: fury in my limbs, destruction in my bones.
Fury in my limbs, destruction in my bones and marrow, my skull riven into filaments, my eyes into sea jellies, floating upon the tide, wonder bubbling and bubbling, uttering my lamentations, and begetting little monsters who sit mocking upon the little pebbles of the tide. Vala, or the four Zoas.
And begetting little monsters who sit mocking upon the little pebbles of the tide. Ugh! Okay.
Ugh.
Allen Ginsberg suggested in one of his Naropa lectures in the 70s that Blake drew on a detail from Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights as inspiration for Tharmas's speech in The Four Zoas.
You talked earlier about near-death experience, and I read a few books like or even seen interviews when you have, how can I say this, some similar experience?
Yeah.
Of, variants like, there is a tunnel for some, there will be, I meet this figure, or I have a vision of hell or heaven, or I've seen God, or God is not how he looked like, So there is a lot of variance and some similar experience at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of curious, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is something that we're not entirely sure of, even today.
Just suddenly remembered that painting by Hieronymus Bosch. I think it's in the Grimani Palace in Venice, but that may have been just a special exhibition. And it's that one where he's painted this tunnel of light and there's this figure floating up towards it. It might be more than one figure. Do you know the one I mean?
I think so. Let me just... yes, I think I know where you...
It's not...
Yes, Hieronymus Bosch, yes.
The Ascent of the Blessed was painted between 1505 and 1515, and depicts winged angels lifting departed souls towards a tunnel of light. This may be the earliest known depiction of a tunnel of light as part of the afterlife or near-death experience. Although displayed as a work by Hieronymus Bosch, its attribution is not universally accepted.
He can paint beautiful gardens, these extraordinary plants and trees, animals, lots of happy people. And at the same time, even on the same canvas, he will show you these oddities, these weird, bizarrely shaped creatures. And what was he eating when he painted these things?
It's like when I saw... I'm on its page and I just saw and it's actually quite a famous painting, The Gardens of Early Delights.
Oh, yeah, I think that's what I was thinking
when
of.
You have the last panel, which is the representation of hell.
Yes, that's the one I'm probably that's the one I'm thinking of. How did he think up these things? What was he eating mushrooms? Did he get hold of special mushrooms? I don't know.
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder, because some of these paintings were like orders from churches. So I'm like, did some of the painters were like, are you possessed by the demon or something? Or did they say, "Oh my God, this is what you saw? Did you saw
Ah,
that?"
well, yes, did they
I'm still
accept it
wondering
all?
how,
Yeah.
how they were able to do that without being called like mad or possessed or anything.
Oh well, if they could, if he could sort of pass it off as this was a vision I had, this was the dream, it came to me like this, then yeah, they might have to accept that.
Rintra roars and shakes his fires in the burdened air. Hungry clouds swag on the deep. Once meek and in a perilous path, the just man kept his course along the vale of death. Roses are planted where thorns grow, and on the barren heath sing the honeybees. Then the perilous path was planted, and a river and a spring on every cliff and tomb, and on the bleached bones red clay brought forth. Till the villain left the paths of ease, to walk in perilous paths and drive the just man into barren climes. Now the sneaking serpent walks in mild humility, and the just man rages in the wilds where lions roam. Rintrau roars and shakes his fires in the burdened air. Hungry clouds swag on the deep. The argument from the marriage of heaven and hell.
You could say he's kind of satirical of a lot of the human foibles and institutions of the time.
Oh my God. I think I was looking like on the gallery of the paintings, and I tried to see if the thing I saw, because they just show me a picture of Zoom. I think it's a vision of hell, and you see a sort of monster who is dressed, like a man, but who is like blue, has the head of a little bird, has a cauldron on his head, is eating a man, which you just see his butt out
Oh.
of the mouth. And
Is this
from
in
his,
is this Tondor's vision? Where are you? What are you looking at? Garden of Delights or?
I don't know if it's from the Garden of Delight. I just came to the images, and there is a title just underneath, which is "Sturdy 500th Anniversary of Hieronymus Bosch Death." There is one of the pictures which is an ugly bird on a throne, a little bird dressed up in blue with a cauldron on his head as a hat, and in his mouth a man. You only see his butt, and from his butt there is something that goes out. I don't know what it is. It's so weird.
So horrible. He mashes things up. He puts things in uncomfortable places. Yeah.
So strange.
Very, very. I mean, but then this is where we've also have. This is where the surrealism comes in. The utter strangeness of it.
It's true. You see, I'm rediscovering Bosch. I know
Yeah.
I saw a few of his paintings, but perhaps not in such detail.
Well, you come at them from a different perspective, perhaps. They are fascinating. They've got a kind of horrific fascination about them.
There is
Oh, the head of the bird. Yes, yes. It's in the
It's so
hell,
weird, right?
the hell section. It's so weird. Yeah. I think those are blackbirds or bats, perhaps, coming out.
The bird-headed monster, or Prince of Hell, can be seen in the right-hand panel of the Garden of Earthly Delights, painted by Bosch between 1490 and 1500. Interpretations of this triptych have varied widely over time, from prophetical warnings to a depiction of a lost paradise.
I wonder, some of them if they saw, because there are legends as well, like not from artists necessarily, but from people from today or even from the past who said, I had a vision of hell, when they see, sorts of monsters and having this feeling of sufferance and despair. It's not only these visions, but when you have a
Must be
vision
something associated. Well, yeah, I guess if they're having some kind of seizure, then it's going to affect how the brain.
there was someone who had visions like in the end or the beginning of the 20th century. I try to remember. It's called the Revelations of. It's not Mary Magdalena. I try to remember. And there was three vision. Though the very first one was announcing I think it was announcing the First World War.
Oh.
Second vision was the Second World War. And the third was kind of very, very, very depressing vision about some of the bad souls being thrown into a sort of lava thing, demons or something like that. So I'm wondering actually if when I see Euronymous, does hell look like that? Now, now I just have in my head, the music of Night on the Bald Mountain,
Yeah.
with this
Very
Fantasia
suitable.
section of Chernabog, playing with the monsters, demons, and the souls.
Yeah.
During the dance.
Cold he wandered on high over their cities in weeping and pain and woe, and wherever he wandered in sorrows upon the aged heavens, a cold shadow followed behind him like a spider's web, moist, cold and dim, drawing out from his sorrowing soul the dungeon-like heaven dividing, wherever the footsteps of Urizen walked over the cities in sorrow. From the Book of Urizen.
Did he travel? Sorry.
Oh, travel, yeah. Ooh.
It's this is
Would we know? Because there don't seem to be records, but that doesn't mean he didn't travel.
Hieronymus Bosch was born in Brabant, the Netherlands, and appears to have spent most of his life there. He left behind no letters, journals, or anything to indicate his thoughts or personality. He did become very popular in his own lifetime, with commissions reaching him from abroad, and although there are no records of him travelling outside of Brabant, it is not impossible that he did so. William Blake, while leaving copious writings, most definitely did not travel abroad, living his life mostly in London, with a brief foray into West Sussex. He is unlikely, therefore, to have seen any of Bosch's paintings up close. However, many of the Dutch master's works were engraved by later artists, and Blake, being an engraver, is not unlikely to have encountered these.
So it's funny, like, to know that lots of artists actually, well, some, you have the inspirations coming from something they saw. Well, now today we at least have some testimonies, We can't say if they were true or not, but as there are a few, like testimony of some who lived the same experience, I'm kind of trying to believe there is something. I don't know if it's true, but I have a feeling there is something, that connects us somehow through, I don't know, strong forces, extraterrestrial, whatever.
Yeah.
William Blake lived during the Romantic period, and was also a contemporary of Anne Radcliffe, Mary Shelley, the Bronte sisters, and other proponents of Gothic literature. His imagination is both romantic and Gothic, and visually his art shares similarities with that of his colleague and friend Henry Fuseli. Yet it seems his poetry was inspired by more than these. His visions sometimes reflect those embodied in the works of Hieronymus Bosch, who had painted his fantastical landscapes more than 300 years earlier. But the forehead of Urizen gathering, and his eyes pale with anguish, his lips blue and changing, in tears and bitter contrition he prepared his bow, formed of ribs, that in his dark solitude, when obscured in his forests, fell monsters arose. For his dire contemplations rushed down like floods from his mountains, in torrents of mud settling thick, with eggs of unnatural production, forthwith hatching, some howled on his hills, some in vales, some aloft flew in air.
you.